Hi everyone, my name is Christy Wopat and I am the author of the book Almost a Mother, Love, Loss, and Finding Your People When Your Baby Dies, which will be coming out in March. My book's publisher asked me to make this video answering some frequently asked questions. And so I voluntold my husband to be in the video with me. And so he's going to be the interviewer and I'll be the interviewee. So here we go.
All right, many people have experienced loss, but a lot of people aren't aware of how many families experience the death of a child. Can you talk about how common infant or pregnancy loss is?
Yeah. It's a lot more common than you probably think, sadly. The most startling statistic I know is that 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss. And that's not 1 in 4 people have a pregnancy loss. It's 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss. The infant mortality rate is high in the U.S., and so I can almost guarantee if you're watching this that either you have experienced a loss or for sure someone you know has.
So it seems like miscarriage and infant loss are still such taboo topics, even though they are so common. Do you have ideas about how to combat this?
I guess I'll say that I think grief in general is something that's still really taboo. It makes people uncomfortable. People don't like sadness and they don't like to talk about sadness. And I think especially with infant loss, it's not treated like real grief because other people didn't know the person because, most of the time they never really got to live. I personally think the best way to combat this is to talk about it, which is why I wrote this book, because for as long as I can do anything about it, my job is to get people talking about it so that no one is grieving alone. Another thing I think is if people responded in a more supportive way when people talk about grief, that it would get a little bit better. And I know sometimes people that are grieving, they can be sort of annoying or irritating because they repeat the same stuff over and over again, but that's how people process. And so if you can just sort of, put up with it for a while and just really be loving in your answer, it would give people permission to talk about it more.
You have said before that you tried to find books about grieving infant loss after the twins died, and you couldn't. Why do you think that is? And what does your story do differently?
Well, first of all, I think that the book publishing industry itself has changed a lot, especially since the recession. New York publishers don't want to take a topic like this on because, it's too sad, or it might not sell, or it's been done before. So unless you are a celebrity, it's really hard to get your memoir picked up by anybody in New York. And so I think that that's one of the problems. I think the other problem is a lot of the books about grief are written by people who maybe haven't experienced the grief of infant loss. So there are books by psychologists, or there are books by that are like faith-based or religious-based, but not necessarily books about infant loss specifically. There was one I always saw at the bookstore when I was looking, and it was from like 1972, and it just had like a sad-looking lady on it going like, and I didn't want to read it. I think my book is different because it is 100% completely unfiltered, raw, and honest. And I also think it's full of hope. And it's not just like, this is how awful it is to have a baby die, even though it's awful. This is how awful it might be to have a baby die, but then there's always hope and you're going to be okay. And my editor thinks it's so funny that I put this part in the book, but, I really wanted people to know that the thoughts you're having don't make you crazy, don't make you evil. Like, I wanted to punch the lady in the face at Target that was pregnant because I wasn't pregnant anymore. So it's as honest as I could possibly make it so people know they're not alone.
If you have a friend or loved one experiencing a pregnancy or infant loss, what are the top 3 things you can do to support them? Also, what shouldn't you do or say?
I get this question a lot. The first thing is you don't have to do anything to make them feel better. Nothing you do is going to make them feel better. So people attempt to help someone grieving by saying, they're in a better place, or they're an angel now with God, or they're at peace now. And it really is frustrating because people's intent is good. But really, I think the main thing you say is, I am so sorry and this sucks and I'm going to be here for you. I think you need to be brave enough to talk to your grieving friend about what they need. So I had a friend who would say, okay, here's the deal. I can come over and sit with you. We can go somewhere. You can be by yourself. We can talk. What is it that you need? And that was the best thing anybody ever did for me. And the third thing is, which kind of contradicts what I just said, but in terms of like helping out, especially if the grieving mom and dad have other kids, don't say like, what can I do to help? Just say, I'm coming over, I'm picking up the kids for 2 hours, and I'm dropping them back off at 7. Or you don't have to answer the door, but I'm leaving a lasagna on your porch at 5. Things like that. I guess what not to say is what I already talked about, like no cliches. Don't say something like, there will be other babies, or at least you already have this kid, because, my favorite answer to that was always, okay, like which kid would you like to get rid of? That sounds really harsh and a little bit sarcastic, but that's the kind of thoughts you have when you're grieving. And so it wasn't especially helpful.
So many mothers who have experienced pregnancy loss or infant death think that they did something wrong, that they could have done more to prevent their loss. What comfort can you offer these moms and families?
The guilt that goes along with infant loss can be suffocating. Especially right after Aiden and Sophie died, I went through everything I had done leading up to it. Did I eat something? Did I lift something I shouldn't? Did I ignore something? I should have gone to the doctor. I should have called. I should have done this. And that probably lasted for a good, you probably remember, like 2 or 3 years. I blamed myself. And now, like one of my best friends just had a miscarriage, and I sat with her on the couch while she cried, and she said, what did I do? What did I do wrong? And now when I'm on, it's been almost 9 years and I'm way over here now, I'm thinking, what do you mean? What did you do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. Of course you didn't. But at the time, it seemed very logical that I had somehow caused this to happen and my body had let me down. And so for people that have just experienced a loss, or you're still feeling that guilt, it'll come. It'll get better. It's a journey and it's hard work. I wrote a couple of pieces about guilt for Still Standing magazine. If you don't follow that, you should look it up on Facebook. There are a lot of great articles there, but you'll get perspective on it, and it might take some work, but you'll get there. So there's my first interview. This was the serious one, and supposedly the one in February is going to be the funny one. And so we'll see. Can we be funny, do you think?
We can.
All right.
I think we can do
okay.
it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.